Imagine walking outside on a sunny Saturday, ready to enjoy a quiet day by your pool. You've worked hard for your home. You've paid the bills, cleaned the space, and looked forward to a little peace. But instead of calm, you find a woman you barely know yelling at you, telling you to leave your own backyard, telling you to leave your pool. At first, you think she's joking. But no, she's dead serious. This is exactly what happened to me. She was new in the neighborhood. We all knew who she was within days. You couldn't miss her. The kind of person who thinks she runs the place the moment she moves in. The kind who gives unsolicited advice, reports minor issues, and acts like every street belongs to her. You've probably heard of people like her before. Online, they get nicknamed Karen. In real life, they're even worse. It all started small. A comment here, a suggestion there. You know your hedges are a bit long. You really shouldn't leave pool toys out, they attract bugs. I smiled, nodded, and moved on. After all, I live in an HOA community. A little neighborly involvement is normal, right? But this wasn't neighborly. This was the start of something else. Something much more entitled. I didn't think much of it at first. Just someone with a big personality and too much time on their hands. But then, she started acting like the pool was hers. Now, let me be clear, this is not a community pool. It's mine. Paid for, installed, and maintained by me. It's in my fenced backyard. Not shared. Not open. Private property. But Karen didn't seem to understand that. The first time she brought it up, it was a casual remark. Oh, I told some friends we might hang out by the pool this weekend. I thought she meant her pool. Until I realized, she didn't have one. I laughed, kind of awkwardly, and said, oh, you mean, my pool. She waved it off like it didn't matter. We're all neighbors here, she said. Sharing is caring. Then she smiled, that tight, passive-aggressive kind of smile that tells you arguing would be pointless. Still, I assumed it was a one-time thing. Maybe she was joking. Maybe she was just being overly friendly. But nope, the next weekend, she was there. In my backyard. With 3 people I'd never seen before. Sitting on my lawn chairs, drinking from plastic cups, feet in the water. I stood there stunned for a second, like my brain was still catching up to what my eyes were seeing. When I stepped outside, she looked at me like I was the intruder. Oh hey, she said, like we were old friends meeting at a cafe. We're just finishing up. Hope that's okay. I didn't even know what to say. I asked her, very directly, why she was using my pool. She gave a speech about how the HOA allows community interaction and how it's nice for new neighbors to feel included. I asked if she had permission from me. She ignored that part. Just kept smiling and talking over me. That should have been the end of it. I should have put my foot down right then. But I didn't. I didn't want to cause drama. I didn't want to be that neighbor. So I let it go. A mistake I'd regret soon after. Because it didn't stop there. She started coming by more often. Always with new people. Sometimes just to sit by the pool. Sometimes to host a quick gathering. Once, I came home to find balloons tied to my gate. She'd apparently thrown a small birthday party at my house while I was out. Each time, I'd confront her. Each time, she'd act shocked, like I was the one being unreasonable. It's just a pool, she said once. Why are you being so possessive? And then came the moment that pushed me over the edge. One afternoon, I walked outside to find her standing by the pool with a clipboard in her hand. No smile this time. She was serious. She said, "We've had complaints about your presence during events." I blinked, confused. What events? I asked. "My guests have said you're disruptive," she continued. "So I'm going to have to ask you not to come out here during gatherings." She said it like she had any right. Like she was the authority. Like this was her place now. I stood there, trying to figure out if I was being pranked. But no, she was absolutely, completely serious. That's when I knew something had to change. And I had the perfect plan. I couldn't shake the feeling. You know, that mix of anger and disbelief. Like your brain is trying to make sense of something so absurd it doesn't even seem real. That's where I was. This woman had just told me, with a straight face, to stay away from my own pool star. And to top it off, she made it sound like I was some kind of intruder at my own home. I kept thinking, how did it get this far? It started with her showing up uninvited, then bringing guests, and now suddenly she's making rules. About my property. And she had the nerve to say we've had complaints. Who's we? And what complaints? That the owner of the pool showed up in his own backyard? I walked back inside, closed the door, and sat down, trying to breathe. But I could hear the laughter and music outside. I peeked through the blinds. More folding chairs. More plastic cups. People I didn't recognize, again. Just lounging in my backyard like it was a public park. Something clicked in that moment. This wasn't just about the pool. It wasn't even about Karen, really. It was about boundaries. And how some people just don't care about them. They take what they want and expect you to stay quiet. Because it's easier. Because you don't want conflict. Because you don't want to look like the bad guy. But I was done playing nice. I pulled out my home documents. You know, the kind you keep filed away and forget about until something goes wrong. Deeds, permits, property lines. I flipped through every page, highlighting the details. The pool. Absolutely and completely on my land. Built with my money. No HOA funding. No shared access. It wasn't even visible from the street. This wasn't up for debate. I decided to double-check with the HOA guidelines too. Just to cover every angle. I printed them out. Highlighted anything remotely related to private property, events, guest access, and homeowner rights. There it was in black and white. No homeowner is required to allow shared access to privately owned features, even in a managed community. So the next step was clear. But I didn't want to just slam the door shut. No. I wanted to make sure the message stuck star. Because if you've ever dealt with someone like Karen, you know, a simple no won't stop them. They twist things. They play victim. They push again a week later, acting like they forgot the last conversation. This needed to be loud and final. The very next day, I saw her again. She was at the side of my house, walking someone through my yard, probably a friend she was showing the venue to. That's really what it had become to her. A venue. A community space. A personal asset she could flash around like it was hers. So I walked right up to her. Calm, but direct. I said, Karen, you've been using my property without permission. That ends now. Her face changed immediately. Excuse me, she said, like she hadn't heard me correctly. I've let it slide long enough, I continued. But I've reviewed everything, the HOA bylaws, my property deed, the pool ownership. You don't have any right to be here. And your guests don't either. She started to talk over me, but I didn't let her. I handed her a printed copy of the property lines and pointed to the pool area. I said, this is mine. It's not part of any shared space. And if I see anyone back here again, I'll have to involve legal counsel. Her mouth opened like she was going to argue, but nothing came out. For once, she didn't have a comeback. She muttered something about needing to talk to the HOA, and stormed off, probably thinking she could spin it. Get them on her side. Paint me as difficult. I already knew how that game worked. But what she didn't know, not yet, was that I was already 2 steps ahead. Because when someone tries to walk all over you, and you finally push back, they're not ready for it. They expect silence. They expect you to roll over. But not this time. It had been a few days since our last encounter, and for a moment, I thought it was finally over. No noise. No strangers in my yard. No folding chairs or party decorations near the pool. It was peaceful again, the way it should have been from the beginning. But with people like Karen, quiet doesn't always mean done. It usually means they're planning something. Sure enough, by the weekend, I noticed something strange. A new flyer had been posted on the HOA bulletin board near the mailbox. It had a cute little design, pool float graphics, and colorful fonts. Right at the top, it said, * community pool party, Saturday at 2 p.m., hosted by Karen. * and the address listed. Mine. I took the flyer down and stared at it. Was she serious? After everything? I had already told her, in clear words, that the pool was private. I'd even shown her legal proof. And now she was planning a whole event, acting like nothing had happened. It was so bold it was almost laughable. Almost. But this time, I didn't get angry. I didn't pace around or rehearse some dramatic confrontation in my head. I already knew what I was going to do, and it didn't involve yelling or fighting. No, I had something much better in mind. Saturday came around, and sure enough, cars started pulling into the street. People with towels and sunglasses started walking toward my gate like it was the entrance to a resort. I stayed inside, watching from the window. Karen was there too, dressed for the party, holding a clipboard again like she was running some official event. She smiled, waved people in, and started setting up snacks on a fold-out table * on my patio. *. I waited. Let them get comfortable. Let them think everything was going according to plan. Then I stepped outside, calm, casual, like I wasn't about to ruin their entire afternoon. Karen saw me immediately. Her smile disappeared fast. "Oh, hi," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "We're just getting started. Hope you don't mind." I walked past her without saying a word and went straight to the pool system panel. Hidden near the side gate, behind a locked panel box, the control center. It runs the pump, the lights, the jets, and yes, the drain valve. She followed me, of course. "Wait, what are you doing?" she asked. I unlocked the panel, flipped 2 switches, and hit the button labeled *drain. There was a pause, then a soft whirring sound, followed by the low, steady * glug 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 * of water being pulled into the main drain. It didn't take long for people to notice. First, a couple of kids shouted that the water level was going down. Then more people stood up, confused. Some got out, looking around for answers. Karen was stunned. "Are you serious?" she snapped. "You're actually draining the pool." I turned to her, finally speaking. "Yeah, I am. Because this isn't a public pool. It's mine. And you've been told that more than once." She started sputtering, something about guests, about expectations, about how this looks. I just shrugged. "You should have asked. But you didn't. You assumed. And now your party's over." She didn't have a response. Not really. A few of her guests were already packing up, quietly embarrassed. Others looked annoyed, mostly at her. Some of them probably had no idea they were crashing a private pool. I couldn't really blame them. The water kept draining, slowly but steadily. Karen stood there watching, arms crossed, lips pressed tight like she wanted to scream but didn't know what good it would do. Eventually, she stormed off without another word. The snacks were left behind. A few towels were forgotten. By the time everyone left, the pool was half empty, the deck was quiet, and the only thing left in the yard was silence. And that's exactly how I liked it. No more flyers. No more strangers. No more clipboard. Just a drained pool and a very clear message. You don't get to take over what doesn't belong to you. Later that evening, the silence around my house felt almost too good to be true. No music thumping through the backyard. No Karen yelling over conversations. Just the hum of the pool pump finishing its job, and the faint echo of water still draining through the system. For the first time in weeks, I actually felt like I owned my home again. But I knew, deep down, she wasn't going to let it go that easily. Sure enough, the next morning, I got an email from the HOA. The subject line: unauthorized property alteration complaint. I stared at it for a moment, not even surprised. I opened the message and scrolled through the polite, overly formal paragraphs. According to the email, several residents had expressed concern over my sudden drainage of the neighborhood pool during a community event. It recommended that I consult the HOA before making drastic changes to shared amenities in the future. I almost laughed. Shared amenities. I immediately replied. I attached a copy of my property deed. I included pictures of the pool within the clearly fenced boundaries of my yard. I even attached a screenshot of the original pool construction permit, stamped, approved, and signed years before Karen even lived here. Then, I added one final sentence. This is not a shared amenity. This is private property. And I will take legal action if this harassment continues. Less than 2 hours later, I received another reply. This time, from the HOA president directly. Turns out, the several residents who complained were all guests at Karen's party. None of them even lived in the neighborhood. One didn't even know what street they were on. The HOA president apologized for the confusion and assured me there would be a formal review of the complaint. A formal review of Karen's complaint. That was the moment I realized she'd done more than just send a message or file a minor concern. She had actually tried to frame the situation as if I had disrupted her event. As if she had the right to host something on my land, and I was just the nuisance who ruined it. She spun the story so completely, she had almost fooled the HOA, or at least confused them enough to act. It was unbelievable. But at the same time, totally expected. That's how people like her operate. They push. They twist the story. They act like the victim, even when they're the one in the wrong. And when you finally stand up to them, they double down. But I wasn't backing down. Later that week, I took it a step further. I installed a brand new lock on the gate that leads to the backyard. A keypad system. I even added a few cameras facing the pool and back fence. Not because I was paranoid, but because I wanted evidence, just in case she tried anything again. I also put up a small but clear sign right outside the gate. Private property. No trespassing. Pool use by owner only. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't aggressive. It was just the truth, made visible to everyone who walked by. For the next few days, things stayed quiet. I saw Karen a couple of times, walking her dog, sunglasses on, pretending like she didn't see me. No more waves. No more fake friendliness. She kept her head down and kept moving. But then, something unexpected happened. One afternoon, I found a note taped to my front door. No envelope. Just a plain piece of paper, folded once. It read, "I may have misunderstood some things. Won't happen again. Sorry if things got out of hand." No name. No signature. But it didn't need one. I stood there holding the paper, trying to decide how I felt about it. Was it an actual apology? A truce? Or just damage control to avoid more trouble? Either way, it didn't matter. The message had been sent loud and clear, and not with words. With actions. Because people like Karen don't listen to conversations. They listen when you change the rules of the game. When you take back control. And from that day forward, there were no more surprise parties. No more guests wandering through my yard. No more clipboards or pool flyers. Just peace, for the first time in a long time. The following week brought a kind of peace I hadn't felt in months. My backyard finally belonged to me again. No voices echoing over the fence, no trash left behind on the deck, no unfamiliar faces lounging in my chairs. It was quiet, calm, normal. Just the way it had always been before Karen showed up and tried to turn my space into her own clubhouse. But it didn't take long for me to realize something strange had started happening around the neighborhood. People began acting different. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months were suddenly more friendly. Some waved at me when I walked by. A couple even stopped me while I was getting the mail just to say things like, "Hey, good for you," or "You handled that well." One older neighbor down the street, who I thought barely noticed anything, even said, "I saw her with all those people in your yard. Knew something wasn't right." Turns out, I wasn't the only one Karen had annoyed. She'd rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, complaining about yard decorations, sending passive-aggressive notes about trash bins, calling the HOA about things that didn't matter. I guess my drain the pool moment had become something of a story around here. And apparently, more than a few folks thought it was exactly what she deserved. And while I hadn't done it for attention, the reaction felt oddly satisfying. Because when you're dealing with someone like Karen, it's easy to feel like you're the only one seeing the problem. They're good at making you feel isolated, like you're the one being unreasonable for wanting peace in your own home. That illusion had finally been broken. But as things settled down outside, the HOA wasn't quite finished behind the scenes. A couple of weeks after the pool incident, I got an email notifying me of an upcoming HOA board meeting. Nothing unusual, they happen regularly. But this one had a specific item on the agenda. Review of resident conduct and event policies. I didn't plan to attend. Honestly, I was tired of the drama. But then I heard that Karen had submitted a request to formally define access rules for all outdoor amenities in the neighborhood, including privately owned spaces that appear to serve the community. Yes, seriously. She was still trying to twist the narrative. She couldn't accept that she'd been in the wrong. So instead of backing off, she was trying to change the rules to justify what she'd done. Her argument, from what I gathered, was that some properties, like mine, gave the appearance of being public because they had features people wanted to use. It was such a reach, it was almost impressive. But I wasn't about to let it slide. So I showed up to the meeting. It was held at the usual place, the small clubhouse near the front of the neighborhood. About 20 people were there, including the board, a few longtime residents, and yes, Karen, seated near the front with a folder full of papers like she was about to give a TED talk. When her turn came to speak, she stood up and gave her version of events. She talked about how welcoming the neighborhood should be, how new residents sometimes feel isolated. She never mentioned my name, of course, but everyone knew who she was talking about. Then she got to the part about how some homeowners are unfairly limiting access to shared spaces, and how the HOA should consider rules that make community enjoyment more inclusive. When she finished, there was a pause. A long one. Then the HOA president spoke. He thanked her for her comments, and then calmly explained that private property rights are not up for debate. He held up a copy of my property layout, the same one I had emailed weeks earlier, and read aloud the section confirming the pool was not under HOA jurisdiction. Several people nodded along. Then, one by one, other residents spoke up. A woman down the row said, "I've had enough of people trying to use things they didn't pay for." Another man added, "You can't just claim other people's stuff and act surprised when they don't like it." Even the quiet couple from across the street, who barely say anything, gave Karen a look that said it all. By the end of the meeting, the board not only denied Karen's request, they passed a motion to clarify homeowner property boundaries in the community handbook. In bold print. She left before the meeting ended. Didn't say a word. Didn't look at anyone. Just picked up her papers and walked out. The neighborhood went quiet after that meeting, and not just in my backyard. There was a shift in the air, subtle but noticeable. People weren't as quick to entertain Karen's antics anymore. The usual whispers at the mailbox or the polite small talk during walks had a different tone. Less fear, more honesty. I guess once someone stands up to the person who's made a habit of pushing everyone around, it gives others permission to do the same. A few days after the meeting, I saw her again. Karen. She was walking her dog, taking her usual route past my house like nothing had ever happened. But this time, there was no clipboard in her hand. No confident, self-important stride. She walked slower, eyes fixed straight ahead, barely glancing at my property. I stood on my front porch watering a plant, not because it needed it, but because I was curious how she'd react. She didn't wave. She didn't nod. Just kept walking, her dog tugging at the leash, pulling her forward like it wanted no part in the drama either. I let her pass, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel tense or ready for another confrontation. I just felt done. Not defeated, done. I had taken back my space, stood my ground, and let her run out of road. And now that everyone had seen it unfold, it felt like the whole block had taken a collective breath. But the story didn't end there. About a week later, I noticed something new. A for sale sign. It wasn't in my yard, obviously, it was in Karen's. At first, I wasn't sure it was real. I thought maybe she was helping a neighbor sell or trying to prove some strange point. But nope, it was her house. The same one she'd marched out of a dozen times to come lecture someone about their lawn or decorations or how many cars were in the driveway. And now it was on the market. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cheer. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel like a kind of closure. Neighbors started talking, more openly now. One woman said Karen had called the HOA board after the meeting and accused them of taking sides. Another neighbor said they'd caught Karen snooping near their fence and had to tell her, firmly, to leave. Someone else told me she'd made a comment about never feeling welcome here, which was ironic, considering how many times she had acted like she owned the whole street. But maybe, in her mind, she really believed she was doing everyone a favor. That all her suggestions and complaints and events were her way of helping the neighborhood live up to her standards. And maybe once she realized that no one was buying into it anymore, she saw the writing on the wall. I didn't know the reason for sure, and honestly, I didn't need to. Whether it was the meeting, the backlash, or just the realization that the neighborhood was no longer under her control, the result was the same. She was leaving. A few days after the sign went up, I saw a moving truck parked in her driveway. Cardboard boxes stacked on the porch. A couple of guys hauling furniture out while Karen stood nearby, arms folded, watching everything carefully, like she still wanted to manage the process to perfection. She didn't look over at my house once. And I didn't need her to. I sat by the window, just watching quietly, letting the moment settle in. One by one, the pieces of her life disappeared into the back of that truck. The loud parties, the surprise events, the entitlement, the tension, all of it, packed up and driven away. And just like that, the house was empty. There was no grand goodbye. No final apology. No note this time. Just a vacant house with closed blinds and a clean lawn. The same house that had once been a hub for noise and conflict now looked like any other quiet home on the block. And my pool. Still drained. Still quiet. Still mine. It had been a few weeks since the moving truck rolled out of the neighborhood, and Karen's house sat there, still, silent, and finally without tension pressing down on the street like heavy air. I didn't realize how much space she'd taken up in my mind until she was gone. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could walk through my backyard without scanning for uninvited guests. I could sit by the pool in the evening without wondering who might show up with folding chairs or coolers. The gate lock still clicked shut behind me every time I went out there. The cameras were still rolling, just in case. But nothing ever happened. No flyers appeared on my door. No HOA emails showed up with vague complaints. It was just quiet, simple, normal again. One afternoon, as I was working in the yard, I noticed a couple walking past Karen's house, now listed as under contract on the real estate site. They stopped for a moment, peered in through the fence, and looked around like they were trying to imagine their life there. A few minutes later, I saw them again talking to the realtor near the driveway, pointing at the trees, laughing about something. It hit me then. New people were coming. A fresh start for that house. And hopefully, a better neighbor. It was a strange feeling, watching the same space that had been such a source of stress for so long begin to feel harmless again. Neutral. Just another home on the block. But life has a funny way of shifting gears when you least expect it. One day you're dealing with HOA threats and strangers in your yard, and the next, you're pruning hedges while someone else decides where to put their welcome mat. Later that week, I had a conversation with the HOA president. He was out walking his dog and stopped by when he saw me outside. He nodded toward Karen's old house. Looks like the new owners are closing next month. Yeah? I asked. Seem like decent people. He chuckled. Well, they didn't try to throw a pool party during the tour, so that's already a good sign. We both laughed. Then he added something that stuck with me. You know, when she first moved in, I thought she was just trying to get involved. Organize things. Help out. But sometimes people confuse control with community. That line stayed with me. Because that's really what it came down to. Karen didn't just want to be part of the neighborhood. She wanted to shape it to fit her image. Her rules, her ideas, her vision. And if anyone resisted, they became the problem. I had just been the first one to say no loud enough for everyone to hear. Over the next few days, I started putting the final touches on the pool. Since draining it to shut down her ridiculous party, I'd taken the time to deep clean everything, scrub the tiles, reset the lighting, even fix a small crack near the steps. It felt like more than maintenance. It felt like reclaiming something. When I finally refilled it, watching the water rise inch by inch, there was no audience. No neighbors peeking in. No clipboard lurking nearby. Just the soft rush of water and the sunlight catching the surface in that way that makes it shimmer like glass. I pulled out one of the lounge chairs, grabbed a drink, and sat beside it for the first time in peace. Not because I had won some war, but because I had survived it without giving in. A few days later, the new neighbors moved in. A young couple with a toddler and a golden retriever that immediately tried to dig up my flower bed. We exchanged names, waved across the lawn, and talked about how hot it had been lately. Just normal, everyday neighbor stuff. No drama. No tension. No hidden agendas. I mentioned I had a pool and they were welcome to come by sometime, if I invited them. They laughed, totally getting the joke. Apparently, even they had heard a little something about what went down before they bought the place. Word travels fast in a neighborhood like this. But for once, it didn't bother me. It wasn't about embarrassment or gossip. It was about setting a line and sticking to it, even when people tried to pretend it didn't exist. And now, that line was respected.